She never believed in love at first sight. Not really. Maya had read about it, of course in novels with soft covers and golden titles, in poems she studied in college, in the lyrics of songs that played too loud in coffee shops. She had nodded along when her friends described that electric, breathless moment of seeing someone and just knowing. But privately, quietly, she had always thought it was a beautiful lie. A story people told themselves to make sense of something that was really just chemistry, just biology, just neurons firing in patterns shaped by loneliness and hope. She was 28 years old, and she had never been proven wrong. Until the morning, she walked into Meridian Books on the corner of 5th, and Ashford saw Leila standing in the poetry section. But let us not rush there yet. Because a love story, a real love story, does not begin with a single moment. It begins much earlier. It begins in the quiet years before, in the growing, in the becoming. And to understand what happened between Maya and Leila, you have to first understand who they were separately before they were anything together. Maya Reeves grew up in a small town called Hartwell, in the kind of place where everybody knew your name and your mother's name and your grandmother's name and exactly what you had for dinner on Tuesday nights. It sounds warm, and it was in some ways. But warmth, as Maya learned early, can also be a kind of cage. Hartwell was a town with certain expectations. You graduated high school. You went to a state college nearby. You came home. You married someone local. You built a life that looked very much like the life your parents had built and their parents before them. Maya had tried, for a long time, to want that life. She had dated boys in high school. Not unhappily, exactly, but with a persistent, quiet feeling that something was missing. Like she was reading a book in a language she almost understood, but not quite. Like the translation was always slightly off. It was not until she was 17, sitting in her best friend Cora's bedroom on a rainy Saturday afternoon, watching a movie neither of them was really paying attention to, that Maya understood what had always been missing. Cora had fallen asleep against her shoulder. Her dark hair had spread across Maya's collarbone like ink across paper. And Maya had sat very, very still, barely breathing, aware of every point of contact between them with an intensity she had never felt before. Oh, she had thought. Just that. Oh. It was not a dramatic realization. It did not come with fireworks or thunder. It came quietly, like dawn, like the slow arrival of light you only notice once it has already changed everything around you. She was gay. She had always been gay. And the world she lived in, the warm, caging, beautiful little world of Hartwell, was not built for her. The next 3 years were a careful performance. Maya was good at performances. She was good at school, good at smiling, good at saying the right things. She applied to a university 6 hours away in the city of Callaway, and when she left for college, she felt, for the first time, like she could finally exhale. Callaway was loud and complicated and enormous, and she loved it immediately. She came out during her first semester, quietly, then gradually louder. She found community. She found language for what she had always felt. She found, slowly, a version of herself that did not have to be translated. But love was more complicated. She dated. She had relationships that mattered. A woman named Sarah who played guitar and laughed too loudly and broke Maya's heart with a gentleness that almost made it worse. A woman named Dominique who was brilliant and restless and eventually moved to another country, and their parting was sad but not devastating, which told Maya something about the depth of what they had shared. By 28, Maya had moved to the city of Ashford, which was not a small town, but was not quite as enormous as Callaway. It was a city of medium ambitions and beautiful old buildings, of bookshops and farmers' markets, and a river that ran silver through the center of everything. She worked as a copy editor for a small literary magazine called the Meridian Review. She had a 1-bedroom apartment with large windows and too many books. She had friends she loved deeply. She had a cat named Ptolemy who was indifferent to her emotions but warm against her feet on cold nights. She was, by most measures, content, but there was still something, a hollow hum in the center of her chest that she had learned to live with but had never quite learned to love. She called it loneliness, but that was not quite right either. It was more like waiting. Waiting for something she had stopped being able to name. Leila Osman had a different kind of story. She had grown up in the city, not Ashford, but a much larger place, 3 states away, dense and vertical, and full of the particular electricity of a place where millions of people are all trying to become something simultaneously. Her parents were first-generation immigrants from East Africa, and they had given her everything they could, which was considerable. Education, discipline, a sense of pride in her history and her name, a love of literature that Leila had inherited from her mother, who read novels the way other people breathed constantly and without thinking about stopping. Leila was the eldest of 3 children. She had always been the responsible one, the serious one, the one who made good decisions and thought things through and kept her feelings neatly organized in labeled boxes that she returned to regularly to make sure nothing had spilled. She was a librarian. Not in the stereotypical sense, though she was also, genuinely, a librarian. She worked at the Ashford Public Library in the reference department, and she was exceptional at her job. But what she truly was at her core was a keeper of things, of stories, of details, of the small, significant facts that other people let slip through their fingers. She had moved to Ashford 2 years ago, following a position that had opened up at the library after 5 years of working in a city that had grown too loud for her. Ashford suited her. It was the right size. It had the river and the old buildings, and the particular quality of autumn light that made everything look like a painting by someone who had been very sad and very beautiful at the same time. Leila had been in relationships, fewer than Maya, perhaps, but deeper ones. She fell slowly and loved completely, which meant that the 2 times she had been heartbroken, it had taken a very long time to find her footing again. The last relationship with a woman named Farida, whom she had loved for 3 years and built a life with and planned a future around, had ended 18 months ago. Farida had not been cruel, had not been unfaithful, had simply, quietly determined that she did not love Leila the way Leila loved her, that the imbalance had been there from the beginning and she had hoped it would even out, and it had not. Farida had been honest, which Leila told herself was a gift. But honesty, delivered in the right tone, can also cut as cleanly as a lie. Leila had rebuilt herself after that, carefully, methodically, the way she did everything. She had thrown herself into her work. She had begun writing again long-abandoned stories that she returned to the way you return to a house after a long absence, unsure what you will find there, but glad the door still opens. She was 31 years old. She was good at her life. She was proud of who she had become. But she had decided, quietly, that she was done falling in love. Not out of bitterness, not out of fear, just out of a kind of exhausted practicality. She had loved deeply twice. She had been hurt deeply twice. The math did not seem to favor trying again. She had not reckoned on Maya. No one ever reckons on the thing that changes everything. It was a Tuesday in October. The sky over Ashford was the color of old pewter, and the air had that first real edge of autumn cold that makes you feel slightly more alive than usual, slightly more aware of your own breathing. Maya had taken the afternoon off work, a rare thing. She had been editing a particularly dense essay about modernist poetry for 3 weeks, and her eyes felt like sandpaper, and her brain felt like weather thick and gray and difficult to navigate. She had decided to walk. Ashford was a good city for walking. It had the kind of streets that rewarded attention, unexpected murals in alleyways, a tiny park behind a church with a bench dedicated to someone named a leaner who had apparently loved sitting there, bakeries that let their smell drift 2 blocks in every direction. She had not planned to go to Meridian Books, but Meridian Books was the sort of place that pulled you in without planning. It occupied a Victorian building that had once been a tailor shop, and the shelves were slightly too tall and arranged in a slightly illogical order, and it always smelled of paper and something faintly floral that no one who worked there could explain. Maya pushed open the door, and the bell above it made its small, bright sound. She was not looking for anything in particular. She moved through the fiction section, trailing her fingers along the spines of books in the way. She always did reading titles without really reading them, present and absent at the same time. She drifted toward the back, where the poetry section lived, tucked into a narrow alcove with a window seat and an old armchair that was slightly too worn to be elegant and slightly too comfortable to abandon. And there was Leila, standing in the aisle, holding a thin collection of poems, reading with the kind of concentrated stillness that made her look like she had been placed there by an artist. Her coat was dark green, her hair was pulled back loosely, and there was a small crease between her brows that suggested whatever she was reading was either very good or very troubling. Maya stopped. She did not mean to stop. Her feet simply paused. She would think about this later, about the physics of that moment, about the fact that she had stopped moving before she had consciously registered why. Leila looked up. Not immediately. A few seconds passed, seconds that felt longer than they were. And then she looked up, and their eyes met, and something happened that Maya would spend months trying to describe accurately and never quite succeed. It was not fireworks. It was not a thunderclap. It was more like recognition. Like seeing a word in a foreign language and suddenly understanding it without knowing you had ever learned it. Like coming home to a place you had never been before. "Sorry," Maya said, because she felt she should say something, and she was standing in the middle of the aisle and possibly starring. Leila blinked, looked faintly confused. "For what?" "I was blocking your," Maya gestured vaguely at the shelf behind her. "Your book access." Leila looked at the shelf, then back at Maya. The small crease between her brows shifted into something that was almost a smile. "You weren't in my way." "Oh," Maya did not move. "Good." A pause. The kind of pause that in a movie would have a particular sound under it. Something quiet and meaningful. But in real life, it was just silence, and the distant sound of someone at the front of the store asking about a gift receipt. "That's a good collection," Maya said, nodding at the book in Leila's hands. "If that's the Adisola one." Leila looked at the cover, then back up. "You know her work." "I'm a copy editor. I work for the Meridian Review. We published her last year." Maya paused. "I fell a little bit in love with her poems during the editing process, in a professional way." Leila's almost smile became an actual smile. It was, Maya thought, an extraordinary thing. Not because it was dazzling in the conventional sense, but because it arrived slowly, like it had to travel some distance to reach her face, and when it got there, it was genuine in a way that felt rare. "I haven't read her before," Leila said. "I just picked this up on instinct." "That's the best way to pick up poetry." "Is it?" "I think so. Poetry chosen by instinct usually means you already needed it for something." Leila looked at her for a moment longer, then was strictly required by the conversation. "I'm Leila," she said. "Maya." They did not shake hands. They were in a poetry section, and the moment felt too strange and specific for that kind of formality. "Do you come here often?" Leila said, and then immediately, very slightly, "That sounded less like a line in my head." Maya laughed, genuinely, a surprised, bright sound. "I come here too often," she said. "My shelves are starting to complain." "Mine have been complaining for years," Leila said. "I stopped apologizing to them." They talked for 40 minutes. In the poetry section, and then at the small window seat, and then standing near the philosophy shelf for reasons neither of them could later explain. They talked about books first, then about the city, then about their work Maya's editing, Leila's library, then about small things that somehow led to larger things, the way conversations do when both people are genuinely paying attention. Maya learned that Leila had moved to Ashford 2 years ago, that she was originally from somewhere much louder and more vertical, that she had a brother who called her every Sunday and a mother who sent her recipes she never cooked, and a very particular relationship with silence, which she both needed and sometimes found too heavy. Leila learned that Maya was from a small town she rarely went back to, that she had a cat named after a Greek astronomer, that she underlined things in books even though she knew she wasn't supposed to, and that she felt slightly guilty about it but not guilty enough to stop. When the bookshop began to dim slightly toward closing time, they both noticed the light at the same moment. Leila began. Me too, Maya said. They walked to the door together. The bell rang its small, bright sound again, and then they were on the street, and the autumn cold was sharper now, and the city moved around them. I'm glad I stopped in today, Maya said. So am I, said Leila. Another pause, shorter this time. Maybe I'll see you here again, Leila said. Maybe you will, said Maya. They went their separate ways. And Maya walked home in the October dark, past the lit windows of restaurants and the silver thread of the river, with a feeling in her chest like something had just shifted. Like furniture rearranged in a room she thought she knew perfectly. She could not have named it yet. But she felt, for the first time in a long time. Less like waiting, she saw Leila again 10 days later. Not at the bookshop, at the library. Maya had gone to return a reference book she had borrowed weeks ago and kept forgetting to bring back. She had gone on a Wednesday morning, when the library was quiet and smelled of wood polish and warm air. She handed her book to the person at the desk, and when she looked up to say thank you, she found Leila looking back at her with an expression of mild, pleased surprise. Oh, said Leila. Oh, said Maya. And then they both laughed, briefly, at the coincidence and at themselves. Do you work here? Maya asked, though she already knew the answer from their conversation 10 days ago. Reference department, Leila said. You. Just returning something. Maya held up the empty space where the book had been. Late. The fee is very small, I promise. How small? Negligible in the grand scale of things. A pause. Are you in a hurry? Maya was not in a hurry. She had taken another afternoon off. Her editor had suggested, gently, that she take more of them. Not especially. I have a break in 20 minutes, Leila said. There's a coffee cart in the courtyard. They make a very good cardamom latte. That sounds, said Maya slowly, like an excellent use of 20 minutes. The courtyard behind the library was small and walled with old stone, and there were a few iron tables and a cart operated by a man named Desmond who had clearly been making coffee there since the beginning of time and had strong opinions about the correct ratio of spice to milk. They sat across from each other in the thin autumn sunlight, and they talked. This time, it went somewhere different. Not rushed, not dramatic, but deeper. The way a second conversation, when it follows a good first one, sometimes goes to places the first one was too new and too careful to reach. Leila talked about her writing, not the library, but the stories she wrote in the early mornings before work, in a notebook with a blue cover that she had filled and replaced 4 times over the past 2 years. She had never published anything. She was not sure she wanted to. It was more like maintenance, she said, like keeping something running that would stop working if she ignored it too long. Maya understood this. She had felt the same way about her editing, in the beginning before it became a job, before it became a responsibility. She had sometimes missed that early, private relationship with words when they belonged only to you. What do you write? Maya asked. Leila considered the question, not the answer, the question itself, as if deciding how honest to be. I write about women, she said finally, about the way they love things and people and places, about what it costs and what it gives. A beat. I've been told it's not very commercial. Who told you that? An ex who was otherwise very smart. A slight pause, and wrong about this particular thing. Maya looked at her. I think writing about women loving things is the most commercial genre there is, she said. We just don't always call it that. Leila's slow smile appeared again. The one that traveled. I like how you think about things, she said. I like how you say things, said Maya. They sat with that for a moment, both of them aware that something was happening, neither of them prepared to name it yet. They began meeting more regularly after that. Not with any formal arrangement at first. It was more organic than that, a message here, a chance meeting there, and then gradually an acknowledged pattern. Coffee on Wednesday mornings when Leila had her break. The occasional evening at a restaurant in the old quarter of the city that Leila had discovered and Maya fell in love with immediately. Long walks along the river on Sunday afternoons when the light was good and neither of them had anywhere particular to be. They texted between meetings. This was, in many ways, where Maya came to know Leila best. Because in person, Leila was measured, careful. She gave you pieces of herself at a time, and each piece felt earned. But in text, late at night or early in the morning, something loosened. She sent Maya lines from poems she was reading. She sent photographs of things that caught her eye, a door painted an unlikely shade of yellow, a cloud formation that looked like it had been designed by someone who loved theater, a book spine that read, simply, "Everything will be lost." Maya texted back with her own offerings. Sentences from essays she was editing that she thought Leila would like. Updates on Ptolemy the cat, who had begun knocking books off the shelf in a systematic and apparently intentional order. Small confessions about her day. It was, Maya thought, the intimacy of the ordinary. The way two people build a shared world not from grand gestures, but from the accumulation of small ones. She was falling. She knew it. She had enough experience with her own heart to recognize the feeling. The way her attention snapped toward Leila's name on her phone's screen. The way she noticed things in the city and thought, immediately, Leila would like this. The way Wednesday mornings had become the fixed point around which the rest of the week organized itself. But she did not know if Leila was falling too. And that uncertainty was, for the time being, a place she chose to inhabit carefully. It was Leila's friend Nadia who said it first. Nadia was an architect who had known Leila since university. A loud and precise woman who had a gift for seeing things clearly and the complete absence of any instinct to soften what she saw. They were at dinner, the three of them, one Friday night in November. Maya had been introduced to Nadia 2 weeks earlier, and Nadia had looked at her for approximately 90 seconds before deciding something and moving on. Maya had not been sure what had been decided. At dinner, she found out. Nadia waited until Leila went to the restroom. Then she turned to Maya with the direct efficiency of someone who has never found small talk useful. "You're in love with her," she said. Maya opened her mouth, closed it. "I'm not going to confirm or deny." "You don't have to," said Nadia. "I'm just stating an observation. I'm not asking." A pause. "She talks about you every time I call her, by the way." Maya felt something move in her chest. "She does. She says she's not interested in anything romantic." Nadia picked up her wine glass. "She says this very convincingly and very often. Usually people only have to say things once." Maya looked at her. "What are you suggesting?" Nadia shrugged. "Nothing. I'm an architect, not a therapist." A beat. "I'm just saying, Leila is very stubborn, and also very afraid of wanting things since Farida, so she talks herself out of them before they have a chance to arrive." She looked at Maya levelly. "Don't be something she talks herself out of." Leila came back from the restroom. Nadia immediately began talking about a project she was designing, seamlessly, as if the previous conversation had been about nothing at all. But Maya sat with those words for the rest of the evening. Don't be something she talks herself out of. It was December. The city had acquired its winter quality, the way the cold makes everything sharper and quieter at the same time. The river was a darker color, and the old stone buildings held the light from their windows like small fires. Leila had invited Maya to a reading at the library. A poet visiting from out of town, someone whose work they both admired. Leila had sent the invitation casually, as if it were the most ordinary thing. "There's an event Thursday, if you're free." Maya had been free. The reading was in the evening, in the library's smallest room, which had old wooden paneling and chairs too close together, and a lamp in the corner that gave everything a warm amber quality. There were about 30 people, and Maya and Leila sat near the back because Leila preferred it, and their shoulders were close enough that Maya could feel the warmth of her. The poet was extraordinary. She read about longing and geography, and the way certain places hold memory, the way cloth holds color. She read about women who love other women with a matter-of-factness that made the room very still, as if everyone was trying not to disturb what was being built in the air between the words. At some point during the reading, Maya could not have said exactly when Leila's hand moved in the dark beside her, and her fingers found Maya's, and they held hands. Quietly, without comment, without a look exchanged. Just hands. Maya's heartbeat did something complicated. They held hands for the remainder of the reading, and when the lights came up and the applause began, they let go naturally, and both of them stood and clapped, and neither of them said anything about what had just happened. They walked afterward. The night was clear and very cold, and their breath made small clouds as they moved along the river path. Their pace was slow. Neither of them seemed in any hurry to arrive anywhere. "I loved that," Maya said. "The part about the women and the weather." "The whole middle section," Leila agreed. "The way she used the word harbor, both meanings at once. I'll spend weeks thinking about that." "Me too." A pause, their footsteps on the path, the river. "Thank you for inviting me," Maya said. "Of course," a beat. "I always think of you now when something like this comes up, when there's something I want to share." A slight pause. "Is that?" She did not finish the sentence, but Maya heard it anyway. "Is that okay? Is that too much? Is that something you want?" Maya stopped walking. Leila stopped a half-step later and turned to look at her. The lamplight from the path was amber against her face, and her eyes were dark and careful, and she looked, Maya thought, like a woman who had asked a question she was not sure she wanted answered. "Yes," said Maya. Leila looked at her. "Yes," Maya said again, more clearly. "That's something I want." A moment passed between them, long and suspended. "Maya," said Leila. "I know," said Maya. "I know you've decided not to want things like this. I know you have reasons, good ones, and I'm not asking you to change anything overnight." She breathed. "I'm just being honest, because you always have been with me, and I think you deserve the same." Leila was very still. "I think about you," Maya said, "constantly, in the good way, the way that makes everything slightly more interesting because I know I'll have the chance to tell you about it later." A beat. "I know that's a lot, and I'm not saying it to pressure you. I'm saying it because you should know." The river moved beside them, dark and quiet. Leila looked at her for a long moment. Something was moving behind her eyes that Maya could not fully read. Then Leila reached out, and very gently she touched Maya's face with the tips of her fingers, just the briefest contact, her cheekbone, her jaw. And then her hand fell. "I need to think," Leila said. Her voice was low, careful but not cold, not retreating. "Take whatever time you need," Maya said. They stood there a moment longer. Then they kept walking, side by side, in the cold and the amber light along the silver river. They talked about other things on the way back, small things, the poet, a book Maya was editing, the particular quality of winter sound in a city, normal things said in voices that were not quite normal. When they parted, Leila held Maya's gaze for a moment before she turned away. "Good night," she said. "Good night," said Maya. She walked home with the cold on her face and her heart doing something uncertain and enormous and alive, and she let it do its thing. Leila sent a text at 11:30 that night. "I'm not good at being afraid of things. I've been doing it for a year and a half and it's not actually helping anything." Maya read it 3 times. Then she typed, "What does that mean?" A pause, longer than the usual gaps in their conversations. Then, "It means I think you should know that I've been thinking about you the same way." Maya sat very still on her sofa, with Ptolemy pressing his warm weight against her side, and let herself feel the full size of what was happening. Then she typed, "For how long?" "Probably since the bookshop," came the reply. "I've been arguing with myself about it." "Who was winning?" "You were," Leila sent, "if we're being precise, which apparently we are." Maya smiled at her phone in the dark of her apartment, and it was the kind of smile that felt like light from inside, the kind you can't explain to anyone because it's not about anything they could see. "Can I see you soon?" she sent. "Saturday," Leila replied. Saturday came. Leila had suggested her apartment. Maya arrived at noon with 2 coffees from a place she knew Leila liked, and Leila opened the door with her hair loose around her shoulders, which was unusual, and Maya thought immediately, without meaning to, that she looked extraordinary. Leila's apartment was what Maya had somehow expected and still more than she had imagined. Books everywhere, of course, but arranged with a care that revealed personality. Art on the walls, some of it prints, some of it original, all of it chosen for quality over trend. A small desk by the window with the blue notebook on it, plants that were thriving. A lived-in place, a thought-about place. "This is exactly what I pictured," Maya said, looking around. "Is that good?" "It's very good." Maya turned to face her. "I've been picturing it for a while." They sat on the sofa with their coffees, and for the first half hour they talked easily, the way they always did. But there was a different texture to the air, an awareness that they were both present with intention this time, that they had both, in their separate apartments 3 nights ago, said something true to each other. It was Leila who brought it back. "I want to explain something," she said. She held her coffee with both hands. "About why I've been careful." "You don't have to." "I know, I want to." A breath. "After Farida, I spent a long time trying to figure out how to protect myself, how to build something that wouldn't cost me so much the next time." A pause. "And I think I was doing that with you, building a friendship that I kept telling myself was only a friendship, even when it clearly wasn't." She looked at Maya directly. "Which wasn't fair, to you or to me." "I wasn't waiting," Maya said. "I mean, I was, but it didn't feel like waiting. It felt like being exactly where I wanted to be." Leila's expression shifted. Something in it opened. "That's either very generous," she said, "or a sign that you're dangerously good-natured." "Probably both," Maya said. Leila laughed. The real, full laugh that Maya had heard maybe 4 times and treasured each one. "I want to try," Leila said when the laughter had settled. "I want to not be afraid of this." She looked at Maya steadily. "I'm telling you that I'm scared. I'm not trying to hide it, but I want to try." "So do I," said Maya. "I'm also scared for the record." "You don't seem scared." "That's because I hide it better, a beat. I've had practice." Leila considered her. "What are you scared of?" Maya thought about it honestly. "That I already care about you more than is sensible," she said, "and that this is going to matter to me in a way that will make me vulnerable in all the ways I've been trying to avoid." She paused. "And I'm going to do it anyway." A silence, warm and real. Leila set down her coffee cup. She reached across the small space between them on the sofa, and she took Maya's hand. Both of them looked down at this simple thing for a moment. Then Leila looked up. "Hi," she said. Maya smiled. "Hi," she said back. They took it slowly, with intention. Not because they doubted, but because they both wanted to do it right. Because both of them had built something they valued in the friendship, and they were careful with it, the way you are careful with something that has already been good to you. Their first date was dinner at a small Ethiopian restaurant that Leila knew, tucked into a side street in the eastern part of the city. It had music and good light, and the kind of food that requires you to share, which meant they were always reaching toward the same things at the same time. They talked for 3 hours and could have kept going. At the end of the evening, on the pavement outside, they stood close together in the cold. "I had a very good time," Leila said. "So did I." "I've had a good time with you before," Leila said, thinking about it. But this felt different. It felt like she paused, searching. "Like it was for itself," Maya offered. Leila looked at her. "Yes, exactly that." They stood in the cold, a foot of space between them, and both of them recognized that this was a moment. Not in a dramatic way, just in the quiet way that some moments announce themselves. Leila leaned forward and kissed her. Softly, briefly. Her mouth was warm and the cold was around them, and Maya felt the contact all the way through, as if she had been waiting for it without knowing exactly what she had been waiting for. When they stepped back, Leila's eyes were soft. "I've been wanting to do that," she said, "for an embarrassingly long time." "How long?" "Since the bookshop, probably." A small, rueful smile, which I was refusing to admit to myself. Maya smiled back. "I know, Nadia told me." Leila blinked. Nadia told you. Not in detail, Maya said, but yes. Leila made a face that was simultaneously exasperated and fond. I'm going to have to talk to Nadia. Or thank her. Leila considered this. Or thank her, she agreed. The weeks that followed were some of the best of Maya's life. She had been in love before. She knew what it felt like. But this had a particular quality she found difficult to analyze because she and Leila already knew each other. There was no discovery at a distance, no projecting a fantasy onto an unknown person. She had sat with Leila in the ordinary days, had seen her tired and focused and laughing and sometimes sad, had already understood the way she moved through the world. And all of that knowing made this bigger, not smaller. Because she was falling in love not with an idea of Leila, but with Leila herself, with all the specific, particular, real things she had already learned. With the way Leila read, with fierce and total attention, as if the book were the only thing in the room. With the way she explained things at the library, to patrons who came in with vague and confused requests, finding their way with patience and clarity to what they actually needed. With the way she talked about her family, her brother's weekly calls, her mother's recipes, the particular mixture of pride and responsibility and love she felt toward them. With the way she moved in the kitchen when she was cooking, which was with the same deliberate care she brought to everything, and which produced food that was extraordinary. With the small crease between her brows that appeared when she was thinking hard. With the slow travel of her smile, it was not without difficulty. Real things never are. In February, Leila went through a hard stretch. A confluence of things, a difficult personnel situation at the library, a period of bad sleep, the anniversary of when she and Farida had ended things arriving the way anniversaries do, quietly and with unexpected weight. She became quieter, more contained. Maya noticed, not immediately, but gradually, the way the texture of things shifted when Leila was managing something internally that she had not yet decided to share. Maya did not push. This was difficult. She was, by temperament, someone who wanted to move toward things, who found inaction harder than action. But she had learned, with Leila, the importance of timing, of letting things arrive when they were ready. On the second Saturday of February, Leila called Maya in the early evening. I need to tell you something, she said. Okay, said Maya. I've been withdrawing this past couple of weeks. A pause. I'm aware of it. I don't know how to stop automatically when it happens. It's what I do when things get heavy. I know, Maya said gently. I'm not withdrawing from you specifically. I want you to know that. It's not about us. Another pause. But I realize I've been putting a wall up and you've been very patient on the other side of it, and you deserve to know why. She explained. The work situation, the anniversary, the tiredness. Maya listened, without interrupting. Thank you for telling me, she said, when Leila was done. I'm sorry it took me this long. Don't apologize, Maya paused. Can I ask something? Yes. What do you need? Not what you think you should need. What do you actually need right now? A long pause. I think, said Leila slowly, I'd like you to come over, and I'd like to not have to talk very much. I'd like to just be in the same room as you. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She was. They spent the evening on Leila's sofa, with a film playing that neither of them watched, and Leila gradually leaning until her head was against Maya's shoulder, and Maya's arm came around her. They did not talk much, but the silence had the quality of the right kind of silence, the kind that holds you rather than empties you. At the end of the evening, when Maya was putting on her coat to leave, Leila held her hand at the door. I wasn't wrong to be afraid, she said quietly, but I was wrong to think that afraid was the only option. Maya looked at her. Thank you, Leila said, for being the kind of thing worth being afraid for. Maya pressed her forehead briefly against Leila's. Always, she said. There was a night in March when they had their first real argument. It was about something small, on the surface. Maya had committed to something on a Saturday they had planned together, without consulting Leila first. A work event, genuinely important, but arranged in a rush and mentioned too casually. Leila was not angry in an explosive way. She was quiet, which was worse. The measured kind of upset that comes from someone who has had enough practice at containment that even their hurt comes out organized. "It's not about the Saturday," she said. "It's about the way you mentioned it, like it was already decided and you were informing me." "I didn't mean it like that." "I know you didn't mean it like that. That doesn't change how it felt." Maya sat with this, fought the instinct to explain herself further, and instead made herself listen. "You're right," she said. "I should have asked, not told." "Yes. I'm sorry." Leila looked at her. "Okay. Is it okay?" A breath. "Yes, I just need you to," she paused. "I need us to be equals in this. I need decisions about our time to be conversations, not announcements. I had that before, and it's something I care about." "I hear you," Maya said. "I mean that. I won't do it again." The apology landed differently because Maya did not defend it away. Because she heard the actual thing underneath the surface complaint, the thing about respect and equality and two people navigating shared life with attention. Later that night, after things had eased, Leila said, "I know it seems like a small thing." "It's not a small thing," Maya said. "It's a real thing, and you were right to say so." Leila looked at her with an expression Maya was coming to know. The one that said, "You surprise me sometimes." "I'm glad we talked about it," she said. "So am I." Spring arrived in Ashford gradually, the way it does in cities that have good springs. Not all at once, but in small increments. A warmer quality to the light. The first green appearing on the trees along the river path. The farmers' market reopening on Sunday mornings with different offerings than autumn had brought. They walked the river more. It was their habit now, the Sunday walk, a ritual that had its own internal geography. There was a bench they always stopped at, near the old footbridge, and they sat there often and watched the water and talked or did not talk. It was on one of these Sundays, in April, that something happened that Maya would remember for a very long time. They were sitting on the bench. The light was coming in at a low angle and turning everything gold and warm. Leila had her head tilted back slightly, eyes half closed, just breathing. "I've been thinking," Leila said, not looking at her, still half in the warmth. About what I wrote when I was processing things after Farida." A pause. "I used to write that it was better to keep things contained. That love is a risk-to-reward ratio, and mine had come out negative twice, and there was no logical reason to try again." Maya waited. "I was writing in the notebook this morning," Leila continued, "and I wrote something different." She paused. "I wrote that I was wrong." Maya looked at her. Leila opened her eyes and turned to meet her gaze. The afternoon light was across her face, warm and precise. "I was wrong," she said again. "Not because it's not a risk. It is. It's still a risk." A beat. "But the alternative, the contained life, the safe life, the life where I protect myself so carefully that nothing gets in, that's not actually living. And I think I had forgotten that." She reached over and took Maya's hand. "You reminded me," she said. Maya felt something enormous and quiet settle into place inside her chest. "You reminded me too," she said, "in different ways, but equally." Leila looked at her for a moment. Then she looked back at the river. "I love you," she said. It came out simply, not like a confession or a performance, like stating something that had been true for long enough that there was no drama left in saying it, just the fact of it, clean and clear and real. Maya heard it pass through her like a chord. "I love you," she said back. The river moved. The light changed color by degrees. They sat there a long time, hand in hand, as the afternoon turned toward evening. This is not a story with a single ending. Because real love stories do not end. They continue, past the point where the narrative turns and the telling gets harder because the material becomes too ordinary and too specific and too private to fit neatly into words. So here is what continued. Maya's apartment gradually came to feel insufficient, not because it was bad, but because Leila's presence in it had revealed what was missing. They began to spend more nights together than most nights. Then they had a quiet conversation, sometime around June, in the practical, unromantic language of logistics about lease terms and storage, and who would bring which cat toys. Leila had gotten a cat too, a small orange tabby named Saffron who regarded Ptolemy with aristocratic disdain before eventually tolerating him. They moved in together in August. The apartment they found was in the old quarter of Ashford, on the second floor of a building with tall windows and high ceilings, and a kitchen slightly larger than either of theirs had been, which mattered to Leila for reasons of cooking and to Maya for reasons of watching Leila cook. There were hard adjustments. Leila was tidier. Maya's relationship with horizontal surfaces was creative, and she had to work on it. Maya woke earlier. Leila was more functional after 9, and this required a kind of temporal negotiation. There were evenings where they were both depleted, and there was nothing left over for tenderness, and they had to learn what they each looked like exhausted and find out whether they still liked each other then. They did. This was not a small thing. They also got better at the things they had struggled with. Leila got slightly better at saying things before they became weights she carried alone. Maya got significantly better at asking rather than telling, at consulting rather than informing, at remembering that their shared life required two people's input to navigate well. Leila published something. In October, just over a year after they had met in the bookshop, she submitted a piece to a literary journal. Not a story exactly, more of a lyric essay about migration and memory, and the women in her family who had carried both. It was the most personal thing she had ever written, and sending it off had required a kind of courage that was different from ordinary bravery, the courage of putting something private into the world and accepting that it would be read by strangers. It was accepted. And then, to Leila's genuine surprise, it was celebrated. It made several best of lists for the year. She received letters from women who had read it and recognized something of themselves in it. Maya had read it before she sent it, in draft, then in revision, then in the final form. Each time, she had felt the particular pride of someone who loves a person in full and gets to watch them be fully themselves. "I'm so proud of you," she said, the night the acceptance came. "It's one essay," Leila said, but she was beaming. The slow smile arrived in full. "It's the beginning," Maya said, "of you letting yourself be seen." Leila looked at her. "That started before the essay," she said. "That started in a bookshop on 5th Street. There is a particular Sunday in November, the second year, that Maya will always hold." They were at the farmer's market, moving through it with the easy rhythm of two people who have learned each other's pace. Leila had stopped at a stall selling dried herbs, holding up a bundle of something, and inhaling it with the focused attention she brought to all sensory experiences, and Maya was standing slightly behind her, watching the city move around them. The light was doing its November thing, low and golden and brief, the kind that tells you winter is coming, and you should pay attention to the warmth while it lasts. Maya looked at Leila and felt something that she would later try to write down and fail. Not falling, she had already fallen, had fallen completely and landed and found the landing was good. This was different. This was the feeling on the other side of falling, the feeling of being already in the place you were moving toward, the settled, specific, astonishing feeling of being here. Leila turned and found her watching. "What?" she said. "Nothing," said Maya. "I just love you." "You say it like it surprises you every time." "It does," said Maya honestly. "A little every time." Leila's slow smile made its way to her face. She held out the bundle of herbs. "Rosemary," she said. "Do we need rosemary?" "We need everything," said Maya. Leila laughed and turned back to the stall. And Maya stood in the November light, in the city she had chosen and the life she had built and the love she had found, and she felt the hollow hum in the center of her chest, the waiting, the longing without a name. And it was gone. Had been gone for a long time, actually. She just wanted to mark the moment. Notice its absence the way you sometimes notice, with sudden gratitude, the end of a pain you had been carrying so long it had started to feel like part of you. She was not waiting anymore. She had arrived, This is a true love story. Not true in the sense of a documented historical record. Not true in the sense of names that can be verified or dates that can be cross-referenced. True in the sense that matters. True in the sense that every element of it has been felt by someone, somewhere. By two people who found each other later than they had expected and built something that neither of them could have predicted from the raw material of who they separately were. True in the sense that love between women, quiet, deep, complicated, specific love between women, is as old and as real and as worthy of record as any other kind. True in the sense that fear and hope can coexist. That the brave thing is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to feel it and move toward what you want anyway. True in the sense that the best love stories do not require grand declarations or dramatic reversals or a single pivotal moment. They require two people standing in the poetry section of a bookshop on a pewter October afternoon. A slow smile that has to travel a distance to arrive. A hand found in the dark during a reading. A text sent at 11:30 at night by someone who had been arguing with herself and finally, quietly, stopped. A bench by a river in April light, and 4 words said simply and received simply and returned simply. And all the ordinary, extraordinary days that come after. And if you are out there waiting for something you have stopped being able to name, please know this. The bookshop exists. The October light exists. The thing that will make you feel, for the first time in a long time, less like waiting. It exists. And it is worth every careful step you took to get to it.